And then you wrote, unhappy with it being weaponized as a PR redemption tool by Blake Lively and her team. Honestly, I don't think the judge should grant attorneys' fees in this matter.
I was worried that this is going to become just a PR campaign for her, and it wasn't going to be about survivors anymore. It was going to be about, like, I didn't want her to turn my bill into the Met Gala.
Blake Lively settled her case and then asked the court to hand her a victory anyway. That is not how settlements work. Settlements are the thing you do instead of getting a victory. But Blake filed for attorney fees and punitive damages under a survivor protection law she did not write. A law that was not built for wealthy actresses with publicists, elite attorneys, and a Hollywood PR machine parked outside with the engine running. It was built for the woman you just heard, Victoria Burke. And Victoria Burke is not happy. Blake Lively is basically trying to do to Victoria Burke's law what people have accused her of doing to Justin Baldoni on It Ends With Us. Walk in late, act like the room needed her, and leave fingerprints on work another person already built. That is why this 47.1 drama feels so ugly. It is not just a fee fight after settlement. It is Blake's authorship problem returning, only this time the project is not a film. It is a survivor protection law. California Civil Code 47.1 was created to protect people who speak out about harassment or assault from being buried under retaliatory defamation lawsuits. People with no power or media pipeline need protection when they speak about something serious. The settlement should have been the ending. Instead, it feels like the beginning of an entirely different fight. Because the lawsuit itself may be over, but the battle over what people are supposed to think about it is very much alive. At this point, Blake does not need some sweeping courtroom victory that rewrites everything that happened over the last 2 years. That ship has sailed. What she needs now is something smaller, but arguably more useful. A ruling, a finding, a number on a piece of paper, something she can point to and say, "See, the court agreed with me." She does not need the whole cake. She just needs a crumb big enough for outlets like TMZ and People magazine to frost it. Just accepting the loss is not a solution because the real problem is no longer legal, it is reputational. It leaves a question hanging in the air that neither Blake nor Ryan seem eager to answer. If this was always about getting the truth into daylight, why did the push for daylight suddenly end the moment a jury was ready to hear your version of the truth? So now 47.1 becomes the escape hatch. Except Victoria Burke, the woman behind the law, stepped into the room and made the escape hatch look like evidence. Burke is not a random YouTube commentator that Blake's team can toss into the conspiracy blender because she read filings out loud or called Blake a mean girl. She is the architect of the law. She is a survivor. She researched it, drafted it, pushed it, and fought to expand it because she understood why people are afraid to speak. So when Burke says she is unhappy with Blake's team using the law as a PR redemption tool, that lands like the woman who built the house asking why Blake is measuring the curtains. PR redemption tool is the phrase that kills the room. It says Blake is trying to use the law to clean up the ending of a case that did not give her the public victory she wanted. And Burke did not stop there. According to Burke, Blake's attorney communicated that Blake wanted to help move 47.1 nationally, including into New York. Burke said she was already doing that. She had already been moving the law into other states. She wanted it handled carefully, quietly, and without turning it into a celebrity spectacle, because messy test cases can damage laws built for people who need them.
I received a communication from her attorney that mentioned that Blake was going to be moving 47.1 nationally. They would be aware that I've already moved it to 4 states. It's been now enacted in 4 states, and I have introduced it in 15 states this legislative session. So I have, for years, been working on moving it nationwide.
Then Blake arrives with the energy of, "Thank you for laying the foundation. We will be accepting ownership from here." The audacity should have its own parking structure. Imagine spending years turning personal trauma into legal protection, only to watch a celebrity step in and start acting like she discovered the thing herself. Victoria Burke did not need Blake Lively to explain her own law to her. She was already doing the work. She was already building support. She was already advancing the mission. That is what makes the optics feel so ugly. This was somebody else's years of effort, somebody else's history, and somebody else's purpose. Yet somehow, the impression left behind is that Blake looked at a law Victoria Burke spent years helping create and had the same reaction she had to Justin Baldoni's movie. Interesting concept. Needs my version. And once is a coincidence. Twice is a story. And 3 times starts looking like a personality trait. The movie needed her vision. The press tour needed her messaging. The lawsuit needed her narrative. Now the law needs her branding. At some point, it stops looking like advocacy and starts looking like an inability to walk into any room without rearranging the furniture. And Burke clearly understood the danger. She said she did not want her bill turned into the Met Gala. Honestly, that may be the most devastating sentence in this entire story, because everyone knows exactly what she means. A survivor protection law is supposed to focus attention on the people it was created to protect. It is not supposed to become another carefully managed image event where the cameras somehow find the celebrity while the architect gets cropped out of the frame. And that concern did not come from nowhere. Over the last 2 years, Blake has repeatedly shown a tendency to turn serious subjects into branding opportunities. A movie about domestic violence somehow became florals, cocktails, and lifestyle chatter. A legal complaint became a media strategy. Now, a survivor protection law is being pulled into what increasingly looks like a reputation repair project. And the attorney language makes it even worse.
Her attorney was having meetings that I was unaware of with one of the advocacy groups once a week, where she was assisting in redrafting the bill. And I understood that she added or contributed to an additional paragraph, and I kept asking to see the additional paragraph. It was never sent to me, but I understood it was something to protect the attorneys who would be, like the equivalent of like Blake's attorney.
Burke said she understood Blake's attorney had added or contributed to an additional paragraph while working with an advocacy group. She said she repeatedly asked to see the language and never received it. Her understanding was that the provision involved protecting attorneys, people like Blake's attorney. Burke wanted it removed because the focus was supposed to be survivors. And honestly, her explanation should be framed and hung on the wall. Attorneys have insurance. Survivors have fear. That is the entire argument. If Burke's understanding is accurate, a law created to protect vulnerable people from retaliation was suddenly being nudged toward protecting the professionals billing by the hour. Lawyers can argue the statute. Lawyers can argue the fees. Lawyers can perform their billable interpretive dance. But the public is not stupid. Most people can tell the difference between protecting survivors and protecting the people sending invoices. The public is usually pretty good at spotting a contradiction when it sees one. Blake is a wealthy, connected actress with access to elite attorneys, major media outlets, influential allies, and one of the largest public platforms in entertainment. She was not whispering from the shadows. She had one of the loudest microphones in the room. And yet the argument increasingly asks people to view her through the lens of someone without power. That is where the tension comes from. Blake wants the sympathy of the powerless, all while she is working with the resources of the powerful. That contradiction has been sitting underneath this case from the beginning. She wanted to be seen as powerless, while repeatedly positioning herself as the most influential person in the room. She wanted to be seen as silenced while launching her story through major media. At some point, those two narratives start crashing into each other. Because you cannot accuse someone publicly, watch the allegation, circle the globe, and then act surprised when the response arrives in the form of lawyers instead of apologies. Maybe the judge gives Blake something. Maybe he doesn't. At this point, I think the bigger mistake was getting here at all. The settlement gave Blake an opportunity to step back, lower the temperature, and start rebuilding her reputation. Instead, she is now at the center of a fight over a survivor protection law that was never supposed to be about her in the first place. And that is where Victoria Burke's frustration starts making sense. Because Burke spent years helping build this law. The goal was protecting survivors. The goal was strengthening protections. The goal was making sure people could speak without fear of retaliation. What the law probably did not need was becoming attached to one of the most divisive celebrity controversies in recent memory, especially when a large portion of the public already questions Blake's credibility. That is the risk. The conversation stops being about the law and starts being about Blake. The protections stop being the headline and Blake becomes the headline. The mission gets buried beneath the messenger. And for someone like Burke, that has to be infuriating. Because a law built through years of advocacy is now being pulled into a public relations war it never asked to join. The settlement should have been the moment Blake stepped out of the spotlight. Now, a law built from another woman's trauma risks becoming nationally associated with Blake Lively. And if Victoria Burke is right, the law may suffer more from its celebrity champion than it ever would from its critics.
That's my opinion!